Hello, dear friends. The current system is approaching its expiration date like yogurt. Opinion piece, awakening, feedback, renaissance, discernment, cultural change, interrupted sleep, dissolution of egregors. Let's start. In this moment of world crisis, a spiritual renaissance of humankind is taking place, which is called awakening. This is not new because it already happened in the 60s and 70s with the underground culture and the appearance of the flower children. But spiritual music stopped with the 1982 recession that left many workers unemployed. The party was over when they said, "Stop looking for yourself and get a job." I told myself the same thing then, and I paid a heavy price. But now the party has returned with much more force than before. According to Kesheraj, a new collective is forming that chooses love over fear and desires the true freedom that is the evolution of consciousness. This is a new collective that is open-minded and accepting of change and new ideas, rather than finding comfort in the same old ways which never served humankind. In this judgment, the current system in which the world operates is nearing its expiration date as a new world of light emerges, where peace and unity are the norm, where true freedom reigns, and citizens contribute to society with their unique gifts and talents. Human beings have a limited potential. It is a new dawn in the spiritual evolution of humankind. Awakening or waking up. The term awakening refers to the action of coming out of a state of sleep or unconsciousness and becoming alert and conscious again. It is used to describe an experience of insight associated with understanding deeper aspects of life or existence. This is similar to regenerationism, an intellectual and political movement that arose in Spain at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. It sought to promote the regeneration or renewal of a society that was facing deep problems such as political, economic, and moral decline, and it sought solutions to overcome these challenges and revitalize the country. The problem of the egregors, which I spoke about yesterday, has a difficult solution. To begin with, each one must dissolve his own swarm of tulpas that nests in his own aura. You created your own swarm of tulpas, and you are responsible for dissolving it and restoring the mental and emotional substance that you yourself have corrupted and degraded. You can't wait for an angel or a Pleiadian to do it for you. Furthermore, if Master Jesus were here and cleaned your aura, it would be of no use to you, because you would create a new swarm worse than the previous one. Crisis. The word crisis comes from the Greek term krisis, which in turn is derived from the verb krino, which means to judge or decide, to refer to the act of making a decision, of making a judgment in situations where discernment or evaluation is required. Therefore, right now we are in a moment of judgment, insight, lucidity, discrimination, and clairvoyance, where we need to distinguish good from evil, that is very masked and disguised as light. Over time, the word crisis acquired a broader meaning and began to be used to describe moments of change or transition, characterized by a situation of danger, instability, or uncertainty. Today, the word crisis is used to describe a situation of major change, often accompanied by significant challenges involving crucial decision moments. A crisis refers to a situation of major and often difficult change, which may involve challenges, instability, and danger. On the other hand, transformation refers to a deep and fundamental change that can be driven by a crisis, since difficult circumstances can lead to the need to reassess and change existing systems. A crisis can be a catalyst for transformation, as difficulties can lead to the need to change and adapt, but transformation goes beyond crisis. New era. I do not like to use the term New Age to define a series of spiritual beliefs that grew rapidly in the Western world during the 70s, because there was no homogeneous movement but very different teachings, just like today. This movement encompasses a very diverse variety of spiritual, philosophical, and metaphysical beliefs that emerged in the second half of the 20th century. Therefore, it cannot be affirmed that everything is good or bad, but it depends on each teaching, because there is everything like in a drugstore, good, bad or regular. These teachings often focus on personal spirituality, self-help, holistic awareness, alternative healing, and the search for meaning in life. It is characterized by the influences of various traditions such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Theosophy, Western mysticism, and more sources. History. In the 60s and 70s, they talked about Saint Germain, Hilarion, Dwajkul, and Kuthumi. They were mystery schools of a new age to come, in which we would know God while singing, "It is the dawn of the new age of Aquarius." We were given insight into books like Marilyn Ferguson's The Aquarian Conspiracy, and all reported on their trips to India. In the 70s, the focus was on Eastern spiritual teachers. In the 80s, the focus was on channeling spiritual entities, and in the 90s, it was shamanism and Native American spirituality, the ones that were in fashion. Common practices were and are Reiki, yoga, Kabbalah, veganism, alternative medicine, transcendental meditation, acupuncture, angiology, astrology, tarot, spiritualism, divination, Ayurveda, esotericism, hermeticism, and occultism. Figures that stood out as spiritual teachers, the majority of whom immigrated from the east to the west, were Osho, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, Satya Sai Baba, Paramahansa Yogananda, Ravi Shankar, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Swami Muktananda, etc. James Redfield, author of the Celestine Prophecy and other related books, presented an open spirit-based life system derived from his own macroscopic doctrine regarding to the state of evolution of humanity's consciousness. David Icke is the most famous conspiracy theorist, who has written more than 20 books since the mid-90s and has spoken in more than 25 countries about reptilian world domination. Cultural change. As society has advanced, there has been a growth in openness to various forms of spirituality and beliefs beyond conventional religious traditions. People have searched for answers to deeper and more meaningful questions in the midst of rapidly evolving and social technology. The digital age has allowed easier access to a wide variety of spiritual teachings and practices from around the world. This has helped spread the new beliefs and connect people interested in these ideas regardless of their geographic location. Many of the new beliefs focus on personal growth, emotional and spiritual well-being, and the search for a deeper meaning in life. In a world where stress and anxiety are commonplace, these ideas may resonate with those looking for ways to improve their quality of life. Curious. Spain achieves its historical population record and already exceeds 48.3 million inhabitants. Italy imposes a surprise tax on the multi-million-dollar profits of banks. López Obrador rules out that Mexico joins the BRICS. Recorded for the first time the simultaneous impact of a violent solar flare on Earth, the Moon and Mars. Harvard scientist claims to have evidence of extraterrestrial life. Astrophysicist Avi Loeb claims that he examined an object that moved through space faster than 95% of the stars near the Sun. According to Cliff, the Pleiadian fleet arrived in 2019. On September 13, 2019, a large Pleiadian fleet of millions of ships entered through the portal and was observed in the form of radionic ships. On September 8, 2023, an interdimensional portal opened on the surface of the Sun. According to Aurora Ray, the Pleiadian ships do not come as savers, but as catalysts for our own awakening. They remind us that within us lies untapped power and wisdom waiting to be unleashed upon the world. His arrival, or their arrival, carries the promise of transformation, offering a glimpse into a world brimming with extraordinary potential. Zeta Talk newsletter. Is there a link between forest fires consuming the Greek islands of Rhodes and Sicily and the sudden, Sicily is not Greek now, it's Italian, and the sudden breakdown of a road in Johannesburg, South Africa? Both are caused by the rolling of the African continental plate. Africa falls on its northeast side, opening a void in the Mediterranean, as happened last February, when waters suddenly disappeared and the canals of Venice dried up. The resulting lack of support and at the edge of the Eurasian plate generates heat due to the tearing of the rock. Quarantine. According to Benjamin Fulford, the Pentagon pointed out that all manned space exploration had mysteriously stopped in the 70s, and that someone or something was preventing us from leaving this planet. That seems to be why all of Elon Musk's spaceships on mission to Mars are blown up when they try to leave the planet. The conclusion they have come to is that our planet is under some kind of quarantine. Research indicated that an advanced civilization was destroyed at least twice on this planet. They claim they have seen evidence that atomic weapons were used in this event. For example, there is a very convincing evidence of a devastating nuclear war in ancient India, including radioactive skeletons, molten glass, etc. This appears to be an event dated 26,000 years ago, whose survivors created many of the secret societies that exist today. In addition, there is evidence of a mysterious genetic bottleneck indicating that humanity was almost wiped out 74,000 years ago by a supposedly massive volcano. Then there is other evidence that the sea level was 122 meters lower during the last ice age, around 40,000 years ago. Not only that, ice core data indicates that this ice age ended abruptly 1,600 years ago. This caused a sudden rise in sea levels around the world that submerged entire continents and coastal plains. That is why cultures around the world have legends and memories of a great flood. For example, in Asia, there is a lot of talk about the lost continent of Lemuria. What we know as East Asian island countries such as Indonesia and the Philippines were part of a large landmass that was flooded at the end of the Ice Age. He adds that Pythagoras was trained by Egyptian and Babylonian priests and was the heir of a much older body of knowledge, predating the Great Flood. For example, according to them, the Mediterranean Sea was a gigantic river valley that suddenly flooded. The survivors of this massive destruction came to the conclusion that the entity that caused this flood was evil, and they had to overthrow it. To do this, they recruited 3,000 geniuses from each generation to continue their traditions. They opposed bloodline rule because bloodline rulers claim the divine right to rule through this being. He adds that the Illuminati Gnostics claim to have started the French, Russian and American revolutions, and also claim that they are now waging the first world revolution. Reflections. You may not be a free thinker, but a cult member, someone who has been subjected to wave after wave of indoctrination since its birth. The parable, or the concept of being born again, which was taught by the Master Yeshua, means that everything living human being must go through a process of removing the veil of ignorance and limitation through a conscious effort to be able to claim your own life, your divine status as a spiritual human being by birthright, according to Archangel Michael. The fourth turn according to Neil Ho. It is said that history developed in cycles, that civilizations prosper, fail, and rise again to repeat the pattern, a cycle that is surprisingly predictable in both time and trajectory. Ho reveals that we are now in the depths of a fourth shift that began around 2008, in line with the global financial crisis. Our current society has entered the downfall part of its cycle, while the status quo is crumbling chaotically. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.